Hello, everybody. Welcome back for the third episode of Seeds of Bravery podcast, where in this podcast we usually look into details of work of different startups in their startup journey, future plans, and of course, different details on how we can support startups during the Seeds of Bravery project. I'm your host today. My name is Oksana Krykun, and I'm the head of Entrepreneurship and Acceleration at innovate. And today we have with us Mykola Maksymenko, co-founder and CTO of Haiqu, a quantum computing startup developing breakthrough enabling technology for future quantum applications. Haiqu was one of the 14 grant recipients from Seeds of Bravery this year. Mykola, nice to meet you here.
Hi, Oksana. Thanks for the intro. Nice seeing everyone.
We've prepared some questions to you today, and we will discuss today like your startup journey, your product, and lots of different stuff. So let's jump in. Tell us more about the founders of a startup, where you are from and your co-founder from, and what are your professional backgrounds?
All right, so a little bit about Haiku. So we are quite young startup, but already quite active, and we move very fast. So me and my co-founder Richard Given, we met at Accelerator in a virtual bootcamp, actually remotely, at Creative Destruction Lab Quantum Accelerator, which particularly created this bootcamp in order to bring together individuals and form new startups. And Richard, at that moment, he was in Stanford, in San Francisco, and I've been in Lviv, and we used to randomly meet in different projects where we really enjoyed working together. And then we participated in the hackathon together, won in that hackathon, and decided that that was a good idea, a good vibe that we have to probably try to formulate the business project around potential startup, and that actually worked quite well. So we got through to the acceleration phase and then incorporated and started our journey in the Creative Destruction Lab. And my background actually is in the past, it was theoretical physics. Then I moved to a corporation where I worked on leading larger R&D team of more than 100 people. Richard also has a very strong technical background, being out of Stanford University and physics program there. But at the same time, he used to work as entrepreneur in residence in Mitsubishi, and then prior to that, also in a couple of startups. So he has quite good connection to VC landscape, understanding of how to fundraise, and that was very good complementary addition. And that's how we started. So we had our technology incubated during Creative Destruction Lab. Then we patented it. Then we created the first prototype, showcased that prototype on few conferences and to few people, got very good feedbacks, and decided to try to fundraised during the acceleration program. And now the team is more than 18 people and of different backgrounds and all over the world.
Wow. It seems like you had a really good match with your co-founder based on your experiences and background, and you were in the right environment at some time to create this startup and develop this startup idea. And looking back, tell us more about what your startup is doing, because I've just presented that this is a quantum computing, but what is the main idea? Who is the target audience, and which type of the value prop are you giving to this audience?
So we all know that quantum computing is a new type of computational technology which potentially can unlock a lot of interesting applications which will disrupt and transform a lot of industries. Everything is excellent, but we are not there yet. And current state of these quantum machines, they are already there. You can use them, you can access them via cloud, but those machines are very prone to various environmental effects and influence. And that spoils your computations when you run something on them. And these are various types of noise. And also at the same time, these machines actually are still very tiny and fragile. And moreover, this noise makes them even less effective on the larger scale. So you effectively can use only few quantum bits when you run your applications. And that's a big problem in the field, because if you want to run actually one of those prospective, interesting applications, then you don't really have a infrastructure and hardware to run those applications on. And we decided, on one hand, people actually are improving those quantum computers every day. So we have new and new models which unlock more computational capabilities, more qubits, more operations that we can run on those machines. However, this process moves slowly. And apparently, there are a lot of interesting ideas how you can improve those machines by using software. And that's what we do. We improve performance of quantum computers using our proprietary software, particularly our proprietary technology which we embed in the so-called quantum middleware stack. This is a stack between applications and hardware, which helps to optimize the application such that it runs optimally on the specific quantum hardware. And that's where we sit. And we decided to tackle this big problem because initially we were focused more on application side, and we understood that it's very hard to run anything on application before you actually have working computers. So that's why we focused on that very hard and challenging problem, but we have ideas and technology how to improve it dramatically. So namely, our technology in some applications allows to gain 100x improvement in comparison to alternatives.
So to wrap it up, you are helping the quantum computers to be more efficient with the help of the software you're building. Am I correct here?
Exactly.
Awesome. How did the idea for this project originate? Because you're saying that we want to solve this problem. So was it from your previous experience, from your previous work, or from the work of your co-founder? And also how and why this idea has evolved afterwards?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So because such things, they do not originate in vacuum. Of course, I have some background, my co-founder has some specific background, and both of these backgrounds complement to what we are doing right now. So in the past, I worked a lot in simulations of quantum systems. I used to work in quantum condensed matter physics, where I literally used state-of-the-art numerical approaches in order to simulate quantum systems on the classical device. And that kind of embeds a specific way of thinking of those scientists who work in this field. And currently, the situation in which we are right now is very similar to where I worked 10 years ago in physics. So we have those tiny devices which are very limited in capabilities, and we want to do something more effective on them. So effectively, what we developed is a new numerical technique which allows us to run more complex computations on smaller machines, which are of much smaller scale than is necessary for those larger computations.
I know that you were working in corporate sector for a long period of time, and before you were working as a scientist. So what moved you on to start your own startup? What is the motivation?
I need to say that I was thinking about startup when I still was a scientist at Weizmann Institute of Science. And there, particularly in that institute, I attended the entrepreneurial program where it was designed particularly for scientists, and they invited various alumni from the institute who started their startups. For example, we had lecture from Mobileye, that's one of the biggest company in the world working on the computer vision for autonomous cars. And
Wow.
and other founders like that. So it was super inspiring. So I had already listed a number of ideas which I can use to start a startup. And there was a number of moments where I really had something interesting in my hands to start it. But I always kind of wanted to gain a little bit more experience, and the role in which I was in the corporate world, it was actually very exciting also from perspective that it was about kind of developing internal startups in the company. So I gained a lot of experience in how to navigate that into the right technology, which potentially can be commercialized, how to pass through the commercialization stages, how actually to generate revenue from nothing. So in the end, we actually had multi-million revenue in our unit, literally starting from nothing. So all that actually brought me quite a lot of confidence when we started finally Haiqu. And right now, I understand that a lot of those like risks that probably other startups have, I kind of can go around those risks because I already had those in my previous world. But anyway, if you are younger, if you don't have that corporate experience, certainly worth starting. It's not worth to think about the one idea as the only idea you will come up with. So in the end, you will have tons of ideas. And that will be hard to choose the right one that you want to spend like 10 years of your life on. So
Yeah.
it's important to start as soon as possible, experiment, fail fast, experiment again, start another idea. And at some point, it will start to grow. So you will see it.
Cool. Just to support your words, and I want to share that in the form of the Seeds of Bravery, one of the projects is Science to Business, which helps startups and scientists to learn how to commercialize their technologies, learn how to go forward and to move forward to the stage you are right now. So please apply and please get to know more. And if to look back to the milestones in your work which you had, or the roadmap which you had before, what were the key milestones in your startup development, if to name few?
Yeah, I would say we're still very early stage startup. Right now, we are on the stage where we already have a developed technology. It works. We proved that it allows to gain significant improvement in a number of benchmarks, industry grade benchmarks. And we now are piloting this technology with a number of prospective customers and use cases of our partners. So it was first idea, then a small prototype, then a patent. That patent allowed us some freedom to operate in this space. Then we moved forward with more advanced demo that we created and kind of a closed white paper which we presented during due diligence process in the fundraising. And as we fundraise, we scale the team in order now to commercialize, let's say, that technology, to move it from the early prototypes phase to something that can be run on the scale for different applications. And as we passed that point, we started to interact with customers.
Mm-hmm. And I know that prototyping is a really like a hard and both interesting part of hypothesis validation, especially for startups when you don't want to put a lot of resources into that. And if you can recall or share with us how the prototype looked for you in this case, because you are working with the quantum computing, it's a deep tech technology. And I think that prototyping is totally different of what B2B or B2C applications are looking.
I would say the main difference is that we are not speaking here about like user experience prototype or like non-functional visual prototypes. So it's harder to communicate. In this sense, the prototyping phase meant that we had this technological idea, we implemented that in the code, and we applied that code to a specific benchmark problem. And a result was let's say a plot or a few plots that we were able to, basically a graph that we were able to showcase to a number of stakeholders, saying that here is an input algorithm, here is how this input algorithm looks after execution through our technology. In this case, it's very similar to what you do in academic research. The only thing, when you write research paper, the only thing that you don't really have time to write the full research paper with all the derivation and all the proofs. So here it was much faster. It was more on the level of like, here is an idea, here how we prove that. And of course, we had to be rigorous enough to show that we don't have any flaws. And with the next stages, we also invested quite a lot into building the whole theoretical background to what we do.
I think this is a really good insight for deep tech startup founders who will be listening to us, that probably you can start with a prototype and test your hypothesis early on and do the technical feasibility study before moving on to very huge models and final product.
Exactly. And I would say a lot of deep tech startups and founders that I met, like who come from academia, they also are thinking in the way that they first need to write 5 papers before they actually move into production. I would say that that's not really necessary. If you are in such dynamic field like quantum computing, you can actually prove some things ad hoc and showcase results which are more practical. And but you need, of course, to have strong arguments why this particular result actually is strong.
Okay, so we are talking about the technology, and let's talk about people who create this technology. And what about the team? Who stands behind your startup and who is working on this technology? How many people are involved at this point of time? Because you said 18 people, as I remember at the beginning of the podcast. And also, how the team changed over the time. Did it grow or did it shrink, for example? So what is the dynamics behind it?
So the team is kind of constantly growing, let's say, but we at this stage, we saturated at this number around 18, 20 people, and it fluctuates due to amount of interns who join us for some shorter projects. And the core, I would say the 90% probably of our team is focused on engineering and scientific component of what we do. So we are like very much operate like kind of production level research institute, let's say. So we do a lot of futuristic research and explore novel directions. So it's great that we have a core technology on which we already built the product, but at the same time we understand that the field moves very fast forward, and we also already have several parallel lines of research which will result in new interesting product families, let's say. And in that respect, we have like very kind of complementary set of skills, typically from research perspective and from engineering perspective. Like almost every person in our team has to be able at least to quickly prototype something, because that's essential. And also to communicate more efficiently with each other, we require quite strong engineering skills. So, but at the same time, I would say more than half of the team actually has PhD in one or another domain.
Are there any open positions? Because our podcast is going outside and probably somebody would love to join your team in the future in some function.
Currently, we have a number of internships which are open for this summer and autumn. So this is actually something unique, I would say, to deep tech startups. Not everyone does it, but we really like running internships because that allows us to find those great young people who have a lot of energy and have new, fresh ideas. And at the same time, this allows us to explore new ideas in the like maybe with higher amount of risks, which potentially will be harder to put on the standard production rails within the startup. So yeah, so internships are open. So we are generally open to any inquiries from people around the globe. And also, particularly with Seeds of Bravery, we'll be extending our team with, I would say, product marketing / communication person, focusing particularly on helping bring our technology to market and communicating it right to our customers.
Sounds impressive, actually, concerning your team and how scientific based it is at this point of time, but probably that's crucial for deep tech startups. And let's talk about the financing now, because the startups are running on funds, and also like to develop something, we need to have financing. What, if you can talk about this, was the development cost of the initial technology and where did the funding came from?
Yeah, so the initial stage when we started in Accelerator, it was fully bootstrap. So both of us were investing quite significant amount of like on my side, I took sabbatical. Richard at that time just like took time off from his job and just worked full time on the startup. So in the first few months, it was fully bootstrap. And then we managed to rather quickly actually raise the first pre-seed round. And since then, we fully jumped into the startup and started to grow the team. Initially, we raised 4 millions, and that you can typically account that when people raise, your plan is typically like for 18 or up to 24 months. That's how our financial planning is working on. Essentially, we were able to be more frugal in our expenses, and we have longer runway. However, we anyway will need to raise soon. And that's why we also are quite open to non-dilutive funding, because any of such funding allows you to focus on the things which you otherwise would not be having resources to focus. Because in the beginning, you have quite high capital intensive processes. You are required to hire very specific, often unique talent in some specific locations, which often also come with extra expenses. And at the same time, you need to be rapid in how you enter the market and how you start working with the specific customers. You need to be having some resources, for example, to patent an necessary amount of IP that you have captured within your company, and patents are also expensive. So all of that actually accumulates a quite high burn rate, I would say, in deep tech. In our case, we will actually start the next fundraise relatively soon, but so far we are living on the initial pre-seed funding.
Let's talk about the monetization model of this project and how much does it cost to use for an end beneficiary of an end client of your technology? Have you been working on this soon, and do you know how the monetization model looks like for you?
We are in the very much a beginning of a technological breakthrough, which will make quantum computing more ubiquitous and more used. So right now, we are in the field where you don't have a lot of customers. You literally can count those customers on your hands, and at the same time, you don't have so many quantum hardware companies who produce high fidelity devices which can be used by those customers. So we have quite a limited market, and in this early stage, we engage with customers more on this so-called sponsored research agreement manner, where we together identify some hard problem on their side and try to work together in order to with application provider, hardware provider, and us as a middleware in order to run that algorithm on that specific hardware. However, in the future, of course, everything will move into very much familiar to us model of cloud computing, where we will have a platform-like solutions. Eventually, we will move to a platform-like solution with a fixed subscription fee for different tiers of customers. That's the next stage, and that's also a part of an exercise that we will need to build to run all those interviews, understand the potential working models, understand better the history, for example, how the classical computer evolved, and if you can reuse some of the ideas and models from that space, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of those models already existed in just a different manner. So we just need to adapt them particularly well to quantum computing.
But still, you're working in an environment where you create the technology for a market which is developing right now. So you are kind of creating something new for something new.
Exactly.
So two unknowns right now.
So we don't really know if all the hypotheses will work once the so-called inflation point will happen. But we more or less can predict what will happen. So that happened already for AI. like 10 years before that. So when technology was there, but it was too complex to be democratized and used by everyone. So that's more or less will happen in quantum. In few of those applications we already can envision now. This will be some chemistry applications. There will be some material design applications, or computational fluid dynamics applications, and those we already see quite significant interest from the industry, and people already experiment a lot with how their workflows will look like if there will be a working quantum solution in the middle.
Let's talk for people who are not that deep into quantum, and I'm the one too. So talking about the use cases, what do you mean? Like, just for example, I'm a biotechnologist and I'm running a big set of data, for example, from the elements I'm working with. So quantum computing will help me to deliver some algorithm or some result like much faster than it was usual, like it was before.
It's slightly different type of computation. So it will not substitute classical computations that we have right now. They will just work in tandem. And if you are talking about the data intensive processes, I think a lot of people think about quantum computing as if it will solve all the problems
Like
with
this.
that amount of data. It's not really true. So right now, the technology that we have and applications that we have are probably less data intensive, because loading the data is actually quite a heavy process, particularly loading it into quantum state. So initial applications will be more towards, I would say, high performance computing, where you need to solve some heavy optimization problem, or do some like heavy computational simulation, and which may have a lot of degrees of freedom, and that's why running it on the classical computer will take ages and take a lot of memory. In the quantum computer, such like computationally hard problems can be solved more efficiently. And initially, this will be kind of subroutines for some specific algorithms that can be run more efficiently. For example, there is like very famous algorithm called quantum Fourier transform. It's a transformation from between kind of representations of spaces, and you do it a lot in like signal processing and other applications. And by just having this small subroutine and turning it quantum, you sometimes can gain some computational performance. So that potentially could be one of the applications. But you can think in this in the form of this kind of substituting classical subroutines with quantum subroutines in the beginning.
And this leads me to the next set of questions about using this service. And you just mentioned several industries, but are there any well-known companies among your clients, if you can share? And can you share any interesting case studies?
For example, just last week, we were announced as winners, finalists, sorry, finalists of the first stage of the BMW and Airbus challenge, particularly where we used our technology of executing larger algorithms to few automotive aerospace like problems which are very common in automotive and aerospace. And for example, this one problem that we showcased was computational fluid dynamics, an ability to map some problems in that dynamics to quantum circuits that can be actually executed using our technology. Second was a optimization problem. In that case, you can think about like logistics optimization or factory floor optimization. And again, that mapped on the graph problem, and then you can solve various optimization problems on that graph. And the third one was a quantum chemistry, where we were able to model the particular chemistry reaction over like some ranges in the parameter space. And these are like, as you might, as they sound, these are very scientific like problems. So these are literally like problems that typically are approached by high performance computing clusters and are solved on those larger clusters. So that's where interest from industry typically comes from. And in Airbus and BMW, they have the whole range, I think hundreds of such problems, and all the way through organization, actually, from those low-level scientific computations where you actually need to design new material to problems like if you have a car and you need to calculate the best shape of this car such that it has the best aerodynamics properties. Or if you have patches of a new material that you want to put on that car to improve some aerodynamics properties. I remember one of the cases that we've seen on the hackathon, also from one of the aerospace company, was optimizing the consumption of fuel as the aircraft actually lifts, and so on and so forth. Another interesting use case just a few weeks back that I participated in was a very unusual industry for quantum. It's textile industry, where we worked on the hackathon in Paris with the company Pentland Brands, which owns one of the brand is Speedo. We all know Speedo about the wetsuit. And apparently, the design of the wetsuit is being done with the help of computational fluid dynamics.
Oh, wow.
You build it in the most efficient way, such that the patches of special types of materials are in correct places. And in that way, you can use quantum computing to design those processes more efficiently, because currently it takes quite a lot of compute time, and that's also quite expensive to run those simulations. So you're very much limited in the amount of those different designs that you can simulate, such that you can probably do 5 different types of design, and that's all. With quantum, you maybe do like 10 or 20.
Wow, it sounds to me like quantum computing allows for these companies to make their products even more competitive and more technologically advanced. Because from what I'm hearing, like if I'm Speedo, I can create some new stuff quicker, faster, and be ahead of the competition. So it sounds like a great value prop for this type of companies.
What I really like about this field is like it's so new to many industries. So you can discover things that people just did not imagine before, and that's quite a lot of fun.
It sounds really inspiring. And I know that you scientists usually love having a lot of fun when exploring lots of new scientific advancements, as well as to applying this to industry. Cool. And I have a question to you about the about the quantum community and ecosystem in Ukraine. How can you evaluate this one, and what to do to develop the quantum community in Ukraine?
First of all, like from my perspective, Ukraine has a great potential in quantum computing. So I come from Ukraine, and I know a lot of scientists, like great scientists, and I know the whole history. And what's interesting that this is very much under the radar in the world right now. So on one hand, we have a huge pool of talent. On the other hand, this pool of talent is not that there is not so many companies which tap into that pool of talent. And Haiqu is currently the only probably company which literally heavily operates and works with the talents in Ukraine. And I also encourage other partners and other friends in the industry actually to do so, because we have some of the greatest software engineers in the world, which actually matured quite a lot over last years, working with Fortune 500 enterprises, having like very good culture, working culture, and having very strong engineering capabilities in order to build something. On the other hand, we have historically very strong quantum community and quantum physics background. Almost every university has a strong quantum curriculum, particularly in theoretical physics. And moreover, we have generally very strong schools of thoughts in quantum in Ukraine. Like one is the school of Landau. Lev Landau, he used to work in Kharkiv, and he established like very strong scientific community there, which still exists, which still flourishes, I would say. And just to those who don't know, Lev Landau is one of the Nobel laureates in physics. Another strong name is Mykola Bogolyubov. This is a very strong Ukrainian physicist who is like particularly respected in the field of condensed matter physics and statistical physics. He established several institutes in Ukraine, particularly in Kiev, famous Institute for Theoretical Physics in Kiev, named by Bogolyubov, and another institute where he was kind of a godfather is the Institute for Condensed Matter Physics in Lviv, where I used to work some time ago. And these places, they accumulated a lot of like very bright minds, and they do very high profile research, and we have a lot of opportunities here to work with those people. And particularly, there are also University of Lviv, University of Kiev, where there are special master programs, particularly in quantum computing, and for example, also quantum field theory, which are some of the strongest, one of the strongest program in the world, I would say.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that we have a historical background and we have a basis for quantum computing development, and hopefully we will have more startups in this field and more scientists in this field in the future as well. And returning back to the Seeds of Bravery project, so what do you expect from participating in Seeds of Bravery?
Well, this is a great program. I really encouraged by participating in it, and I hope we will also encourage others to join it. That's what particularly I see is that it allows to form the deep tech community in Ukraine, which is fantastic. And for us particularly, the advantage is this networking effect and ability to use different tools and components of this grant. It's not only a monetary component, it's also about being able, for example, participate in some events, conferences, share some ideas and knowledge transfer from one to another. Also, we just got into that, but we already got a number of emails suggesting, for example, some matchmaking with VCs, which is quite helpful for young startups. So yeah, all of that is actually beautiful. I really looking forward to explore more opportunities.
Cool. And we are looking forward to creating more opportunities within the Seeds of Bravery project for our Ukrainian startups, and to help you and other startups to scale their operations, as well as to get the best networking and funding opportunities. And Mykola, I just wanted to say that it was my really huge pleasure to talk with you in this new your role and my role, and because we know each other from our previous backgrounds, and I'm really happy that we have such deep tech and science focused startups coming from Ukraine. And thank you for what you are doing, and I wish you good luck in what you are doing right now, and just to succeed in everything else.
Thank you, Oksana. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hope it inspires others.
Of course it will. Thank you. And very last thing here is, if you are to share something with the audience or have some call to action about what your startup is doing right now or where you need help, what is that?
Well, I would say try to not get in love with the technology too much. So be always open-minded and try to see how this technology combines with something else, and maybe be ready to pivot to some other technology. That's probably the hardest part for scientists, because scientists typically are very, very narrow in what they are working on, and it's very hard for them to switch to something else. So if you have this possibility, try to jump from one field to another and see how your research, how your models that you work with apply to different fields. And the more you do that, the more you will see like interesting opportunities all around the place.
Thanks. This is a great bottom line for the startups who are listening to us. Thank you all. It was Seeds of Bravery podcast with Mykola Maksymenko, co-founder and CTO of deep tech startup called Haiqu. And please follow us on YouTube and podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast and Spotify to hear more of the episodes. Thank you and see you during the next episodes. Bye.
Bye bye.